there comes a moment in life when you realize that your greatest struggle is not always against the world. It is against your own resistance to what is happening. You try to force the relationship to work. You force people to understand you. You force opportunities to appear. You force doors that were never meant to open. And when they refuse to move, uh, you begin to believe that something is wrong with you. But perhaps nothing is wrong with you. Perhaps life is asking you to stop pushing. Carl Jung understood that the deeper parts of the human psyche do not respond well to force. What we desperately try to control often becomes the very thing that controls us. The more we chase something from fear, the more power we give it over our mind. Sometimes the closed door is not a punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes the delay is not failure. Sometimes it is preparation. And sometimes losing what you desperately wanted is the beginning of discovering what you actually needed. Uh, so today I want you to consider a different way of living. Stop forcing. Stop chasing what constantly runs from you. Stop begging for what should be freely given. Stop trying to control every outcome. Because there is a strange power in letting life unfold without abandoning yourself. When you stop forcing everything to happen according to your expectations, uh, you create space for something deeper to emerge. The quiet intelligence of your own unconscious mind. Uh, uh, the part of you that often knows where you need to go long before your conscious mind understands why. And perhaps the real question is not, how can I make this happen? Perhaps the question is, it is what happens when I finally stop fighting what life is trying to teach me? Uh, there is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from particular kind of exhaustion, something that is constantly uh, asking to fall apart. You may recognize it in your own life. You keep reaching out, uh, uh, explaining yourself, waiting, convincing, adjusting, forgiving, and trying again. You tell yourself that if you make one more effort, say the right words, uh, become a little more patient, or give a little more of yourself, perhaps the situation will finally become what you wanted it to be. But there are moments when effort no longer creates movement. It only creates exhaustion. Uh, 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 the human mind has a remarkable ability to become attached to an outcome. Once we decide what we want, we begin building an emotional story around it. We imagine how life will look when we finally get the relationship, the opportunity, the recognition, the success, or the answer we have been waiting for. Gradually, the imagined future becomes so important that we stop observing reality as it is. We begin observing reality through the lens of what we wish it would become. This is where forcing begins. You see resistance, but instead of listening to it, you push harder. You see someone becoming distant, but instead of accepting their distance, it is you chase their attention. You see an opportunity disappearing, but instead of allowing it to go, you spend your energy trying to revive it. You encounter a closed door, and rather than asking why it remains closed, you begin hurting yourself against it. There is nothing wrong with effort. Effort is necessary for growth. Discipline matters. Persistence matters. Courage matters. But persistence and forcing are not the same thing. Persistence means continuing to walk toward something because it genuinely aligns with who you are. Forcing means trying to make something happen because you are afraid of what it would mean if it did not. That the distinction is incredibly important. When you act from alignment, there is difficulty, but there is also a sense of inner movement. You may struggle, but something within you remains alive. When you act from fear, however, the struggle becomes obsessive. Your mind becomes consumed with the outcome. You begin measuring your worth according to whether the thing you want is responding to your efforts. And slowly, without realizing it, you give your peace to something outside yourself. You begin saying, I will be happy when they choose me. I will be confident when I succeed. I will feel complete when this relationship works. I will finally relax when this opportunity comes. You place your emotional life in the hands of an outcome you cannot completely control. This is one of the deepest traps of the human psyche. We often believe that control will protect us from uncertainty. If we can control people, circumstances, timing, and outcomes, we imagine that we can protect ourselves from disappointment. But life does not offer that kind of certainty. People have their own desires. Circumstances change. Opportunities disappear. Relationships evolve. Plans collapse. Doors open and close without asking for our permission. The more desperately you attempt to control these things, the more anxiety you create within yourself. Sometimes the healthiest action is not another attempt. Sometimes it is stepping back. Stepping back does not mean that you are weak. It does not mean that you have failed. It doesn't mean that you no longer care. It means that you are willing to recognize reality instead of constantly negotiating with it. There is great wisdom in observing what happens when you stop pushing. If someone wants to be in your life, you do not need to constantly convince them of your value. If an opportunity is genuinely aligned with your path, you do not need to destroy yourself trying to prove that you deserve it. If a relationship requires you to abandon your dignity just to keep it alive, then perhaps the relationship is already asking for too much. And if a particular path repeatedly demands that you become someone you are not, perhaps the path itself deserves to be questioned. The difficulty is that letting go can feel like losing. The ego often interprets surrender as defeat. It says, uh, if you stop trying, uh, uh, you are giving up. Uh, but there is a difference between uh, giving up and releasing. Giving up comes from hopelessness. Releasing can come from wisdom. Giving up says nothing matters anymore. Releasing says I will no longer destroy myself trying to control what is outside my power. Uh, that is not weakness, that is maturity. There are things in life that can only come towards you when you stop chasing them. Not because the universe is magically rewarding your indifference, uh, but because your attention becomes clearer. When you are constantly chasing an outcome, your perception becomes narrow. Uh, you see only what you want to see. When you step back, you begin noticing possibilities that were invisible while you were obsessed with one particular answer. Perhaps the relationship you were trying to save was preventing you from recognizing you had been carrying the loneliness you had been for years. Perhaps the career you were desperately pursuing was built around an identity that no longer belonged to you. Perhaps the person you wanted so badly was never actually capable of giving you the connection you imagined. Uh, uh, Perhaps as the failure you were trying to avoid was actually redirecting you toward a different version of yourself. Uh, we often judge events too quickly because uh, we judge them according to immediate emotional pain. Something leaves and we call it loss. Something ends and we call it failure. Uh, Something delays and we call it rejection. Uh, uh, but the psyche is deeper than immediate appearances. What feels like rejection may sometimes be separation from something that was never truly compatible with your growth. What feels like an ending may create psychological space for a new identity to emerge. What feels like a closed door may force you to stop living according to an old expectation. Uh, this does not mean that every painful event has some predetermined meaning. It means that you have the capacity to create, uh, create meaning from what happens to you. Uh, you can stop asking, why didn't I get what I wanted? And begin asking, what is this experience revealing about me? That question changes everything. Uh, because when you stop forcing what is not meant for you, your attention turns inward. You begin discovering why you became so attached. Why did you need this person to choose you? Why did this particular achievement become connected to your worth? Why did you believe that uh, one opportunity was your only opportunity? Why did you become afraid that if this door closed, your entire future would collapse? These questions take you beneath the surface. And beneath the surface, you may discover something unexpected. Sometimes you are not fighting for the thing itself. You are fighting against the feeling that comes with losing it. You are trying to avoid rejection. You are trying to avoid uncertainty. You are trying to avoid feeling insignificant. You are trying to prove that you are worthy. You are trying to silence an old wound by obtaining something in the present. And this is why forcing can become so destructive. The external situation is a battlefield for an internal conflict. You think you are trying to make someone love you, uh, uh, but perhaps you are trying to convince yourself that you are lovable. Uh, you think you are trying to achieve success, but perhaps you are trying to prove that you are enough. Uh, you think you are trying to control the future, but perhaps you are trying to escape the fear of uncertainty. Once you understand this, you can begin releasing the struggle. You can still work. You can still pursue your dreams. You can still make plans. You can still fight for what genuinely matters. Uh, but you no longer need to make every outcome a test of your worth. You can knock on the door without believing you must break it down. Uh, you can express your feelings without demanding a particular response. You can offer your best without requiring applause. You can pursue something wholeheartedly while remaining emotionally prepared to accept that it may not belong to you. That is freedom. The mature person is not someone who has learned how to control everything. The mature person is someone who has learned what deserves their effort and what deserves their release. There will always be situations that resist you. There will always be people who misunderstand you. Uh, uh, there will always be opportunities that disappear and plans that fail to unfold according to your expectation. You cannot prevent all of this, but you can decide how much of yourself you will sacrifice trying to prevent it. There comes a moment when you must stop asking life to obey your plans and start listening to what reality is showing you. Maybe the answer is not to push harder. Maybe the answer is to become still enough to notice what happens when you stop forcing the door open, when you stop chasing the person who is walking away, uh, uh, when you stop demanding certainty from an uncertain future, and when you finally allow yourself to discover what remains, when the thing you were desperately trying to hold on to is no longer in your hands, the desire to control everything often begins with something very understandable. Fear. You want to know what will happen because uncertainty makes the mind uncomfortable. You want to know whether the relationship will survive, uh, uh, whether the opportunity will appear, whether your plans will succeed, uh, whether people will remain loyal, and whether tomorrow will unfold according to the picture you have created in, in, your, in your mind. So you begin controlling whatever you can. You organize, calculate, predict, analyze, prepare, question, and rehearse possible outcomes. Uh, you tell yourself that if you think hard enough, uh, perhaps you can prevent uh, disappointment before it arrives. Uh, but there is a hidden cost to living this way. The more you demand certainty from life, the more anxious you become when life refuses to provide it. You cannot control another person's feelings. You cannot control how someone interprets your words. You cannot control whether an opportunity appears at the exact moment you want it. You cannot control the decisions other people make, the circumstances that change unexpectedly, or the events that arrive without warning. And yet, much of human suffering comes from repeatedly attempting to control these things. The mind says, if I can just understand everything, I will finally feel safe. But life does not work that way. There will always be something you do not know. There will always be an unanswered question. There will always be a future that has not revealed itself. And perhaps psychological maturity begins when you stop demanding that uncertainty disappear before you allow yourself to live. Control can become an illusion of safety. It gives you the feeling that you are doing something even when there is nothing more you can actually do. You check the message again. You check the message again. You analyze someone's tone. You imagine different scenarios. You replay conversations from yesterday. You predict conversations that have not happened. You try to interpret every silence, every delay, every change in behavior. Your body may be sitting quietly in a room, but your mind is fighting battles in 10 different futures. This is exhausting. And the tragedy is that all of this mental activity can create the illusion of progress without actually changing reality. Thinking about something for 5 hours does not necessarily give you more control over it. Worrying about an outcome does not make that outcome safer. Rehearsing every possible disappointment does not guarantee that disappointment will never happen. Sometimes excessive thinking is simply fear wearing the appearance of intelligence. You tell yourself you're analyzing the situation, but underneath the analysis is a desperate desire to eliminate uncertainty. Uh, this is where letting go becomes powerful. Uh, Letting go does not mean becoming careless. It does not mean refusing to plan. It does not mean abandoning responsibility. Uh, it means understanding the boundary between what belongs to your influence and what belongs to life itself. You can control your effort. You can control your honesty. Uh, you can control whether you show up. Uh, you can control whether you respect yourself. You can control how you respond when circumstances change. Uh, but you cannot control whether another person appreciates your effort. You cannot control whether someone chooses to stay. Uh, uh, you cannot control whether the world rewards you immediately. You cannot control the timing of every event. This distinction is simple, uh, but living according to it requires courage. Because when you stop controlling everything, you have to face the feelings that control was helping you avoid. You have to face uncertainty. You have to face vulnerability. You have to face the possibility that something may not happen the way you want. And for many people, that is frightening. So they hold tighter. They hold tighter to relationships. They hold tighter to identities. They hold tighter to plans. They hold tighter to old beliefs. They hold tighter to people who are already changing. But there is a paradox here. The tighter you hold something that is trying to move, the more pain you create for both yourself and the thing you are holding. Imagine holding sand in your hand. The natural instinct is to squeeze when you fear losing it. Uh, but the harder you squeeze, the more sand escapes between your fingers. Some things in life require a relaxed hand, not because they are unimportant, but because they cannot survive under the pressure of control. Uh, Relationships are like this. You cannot force genuine closeness. You can communicate, you can listen, you can be loyal, you can express love, but you cannot manufacture another person's willingness to connect with you. And when you try, love can slowly become anxiety disguised as devotion. You begin monitoring every response. Uh, you become disturbed by every change in attention. Uh, you need constant reassurance. Uh, you interpret distance as danger. Uh, you begin sacrificing your peace just to maintain the illusion that you still have control. At some point, you must ask yourself whether you are protecting the relationship, uh, whether uh, uh, relationship, the so relationship, or protecting yourself from the fear of losing it. It is a. These are not always the same thing. The same principle applies to success. Uh, you can prepare for an interview, build your skills, work on your craft, uh, uh, and give everything you have to your goal. But you cannot control exactly when recognition will arrive. Uh, uh, if you make your peace dependent upon immediate results, every delay becomes a personal crisis. You begin believing that because something has not happened yet, it never will. But timing is not uh, always a reflection of worth. Sometimes life develops beneath the surface uh, before anything becomes visible. A seed does not become a tree because you stare at the soil and demand growth. You water it, you give it, you give it sunlight, you protect it. And then you allow nature to do what you cannot do. There is wisdom in this. Uh, your responsibility is to participate in your life, not to dominate it. Uh, you are not required to control every chapter. You are required to live honestly within the chapter you are currently in. This means learning to tolerate unanswered questions. It means going to sleep without knowing exactly what tomorrow will bring. Uh, it means allowing someone to misunderstand you without spending your entire night trying to correct their perception. Uh, it means accepting that some people will leave despite everything you did. It means accepting that some plans will fail. Uh, uh, it means accepting that you may sometimes make the wrong decision and still be capable of rebuilding. This is not passivity, it is resilience. The person who needs to control everything is often terrified of discovering that they can survive without control. But you can. You have already survived moments you once believed would destroy you. You, you have already experienced endings you thought you could not endure. You have already walked through uncertainty and eventually found another morning waiting for you. The mind tends to forget this when fear becomes loud. It says, this time will be different. This time you will not survive the uncertainty. Uh, uh, but another part of you knows better. You have survived before. And perhaps you do not need more control. Perhaps you need more trust. Trust. Not blind trust that everything will happen exactly as you wish, but trust in your ability to respond when it does not. That is a much deeper form of security. Instead of saying, I must make sure nothing goes wrong, you begin saying, if something goes wrong, I will meet it. Instead of saying, I must know what will happen, you begin saying, I can move forward without knowing everything. Instead of saying, I need everyone to understand me, you begin saying, I know who I am, even when someone else does not. This is how inner freedom begins. You stop measuring safety. You stop measuring safety by how predictable your environment is and begin measuring it by how grounded you are within yourself. There is a quiet strength in someone who does not need to manipulate every outcome. They can speak without demanding agreement. They can love without possession. They can work without obsession. They can plan without becoming attached to one specific result. They can lose uh, without believing that their entire identity has been destroyed. They can wait without turning, waiting into suffering. They understand that life is not a machine that uh, responds perfectly to human commands. It is something alive. It moves, it changes, it surprises, and sometimes it takes you somewhere you never planned to go. The ego may resist this because the ego prefers a map. It wants guarantees. It wants promises. It wants certainty before taking the next step. But life rarely gives guarantees. Sometimes you must take the step first. Sometimes clarity comes after movement rather than before it. Sometimes you discover your direction only after you stop trying to control the destination. So begin observing yourself. Notice the moments when your mind desperately wants an answer. Notice when you feel compelled to check, chase, explain, predict, or manipulate. Ask yourself, is there actually something I can do right now? If the answer is yes, do it. If the answer is no, then perhaps your work is not action. Perhaps your work is acceptance. This is one of the hardest lessons, because acceptance can feel like doing nothing. But internally, acceptance is not nothing. It is the decision to stop fighting reality. It is the moment you release the fantasy that your anxiety can control tomorrow. It is the moment you stop trying to force another person into becoming who you need them to be. It is the moment you recognize that your peace cannot depend upon controlling every variable in your environment. And slowly something changes. You begin breathing differently. You begin thinking more clearly. You begin noticing what is actually happening instead of constantly reacting to what might happen. Your energy returns, your attention returns, your life returns. And perhaps the greatest freedom comes when you realize that you do not need to control everything to be okay, because there is a deeper part of you capable of meeting uncertainty, capable of surviving change, capable of adapting when plans collapse, capable of standing quietly in the middle of an unknown future without demanding that the future reveal itself before you take another step. There is a subtle difference between waiting for something to unfold and refusing to accept that it is not unfolding. From the outside, these two behaviors can look almost identical. Both involve staying. Both involve continuing to hope. Both can involve effort, silence, and uncertainty. But internally, uh, they are completely different experiences. Uh, Patience has a certain softness to it. Resistance has tension. Patience says, I will do what I can, and I will allow time to reveal what comes next. Resistance says, this must happen, and I will keep pushing until reality gives me the answer I want. The difference may seem small, but it can determine whether you live with inner peace or remain trapped in a constant struggle, against circumstances you cannot control. Many people call themselves patient when they are actually resisting reality. Uh, they say, I am just waiting for things to change. But underneath those words uh, is an expectation that someone will eventually behave differently, that a relationship will eventually become what they imagined, that an opportunity will eventually appear, or uh, that life will eventually apologize for not following their plan. Uh, they are not truly waiting, they are holding their breath. Uh, 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 and there is a profound difference between waiting with openness and waiting with desperation. When you are patient, you remain present, you continue living, you continue living, you continue growing, you continue developing yourself. Uh, you do not place your entire life on pause while waiting for one particular outcome. Resistance, however, freezes you. Your attention becomes trapped in the future. You keep telling yourself that your real life will begin when something changes. Uh, when they come back, I will be happy. When I get the promotion, uh, it is I will finally feel successful. When this problem disappears, I will finally have peace. When everything becomes clear, uh, I will finally move forward. This creates a strange psychological prison. You are physically living in the present, but emotionally you are living in uh, a future that has not arrived. And because the future is uncertain, your mind keeps returning to the same questions. When? Why not yet? What if? What should I do? Should I wait longer? Uh, should I try again? Should I reach out? Should I push harder? These questions can consume uh, enormous amounts of energy. Patience does not require you to stop caring. It requires you to stop demanding. Uh, you can deeply desire something and still accept that it may not happen. Uh, 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 you can love someone and still allow them to make their own choices. Uh, you can work toward a goal and still accept that the result may take longer than expected. That you can hope for change without making your emotional survival dependent upon it. So uh, this, this is where patience becomes a form of inner strength. It allows you to remain committed without becoming imprisoned by attachment. There is a reason why impatience often feels so powerful. Uh, Beneath impatience is usually fear, uh, fear that the opportunity will disappear, uh, uh, fear that someone will leave, uh, fear that time is running out, fear that you are falling behind, fear that if you stop pushing, everything will collapse. So you push, you send another message, you make another attempt, you explain yourself again, you take another shortcut, you try to force the timeline. And for a brief moment, you feel relief because uh, uh, action creates the sensation of control. But if the situation does not respond, the anxiety returns, then you push again. This creates a cycle of action, temporary relief, disappointment, and renewed action. Eventually, you become exhausted without actually moving forward. Patience interrupts that cycle. Uh, Patience allows you to ask a more mature question. Uh, what is required from me right now, and what is no longer mine to carry? Perhaps you need to work, then work. Perhaps you need to communicate. Uh, then communicate honestly. Perhaps you need to apologize. Then apologize. Uh, Perhaps you need to make a decision. Then make it. But after you have done what genuinely belongs to you, uh, there comes a point when further effort becomes interference. This is the moment many people struggle to recognize. They believe that more effort must always produce uh, more progress. But that is not true. Sometimes uh, more effort simply produces more resistance. Think about a closed fist. When the hand is already clenched, adding more tension does not make it stronger. It only makes it tired. Uh, the same thing happens psychologically. You can become so determined to achieve an outcome that determination turns into rigidity. You stop listening, you stop observing, you stop adapting. Uh, you become attached not only to the goal, but to the exact way the goal must happen. And when reality presents another path, you reject it because it does not resemble the future you imagined. This is one of the ways resistance disguises itself as determination. You say, I know what I want, but sometimes what you actually mean is, I refuse to accept anything different from what I imagine. Uh, there is a difference between knowing your values and controlling your circumstances. Your values may remain firm. Your direction may remain meaningful. But the route can change. Uh, Perhaps you thought you would succeed through one career, uh, but another path reveals itself. Uh, uh, Perhaps you believed a particular relationship would become permanent, but it ends. Uh, Perhaps you planned your life around one dream, and circumstances force you to reconsider. Patience gives you the ability to remain open while reality changes the details. Resistance demands that reality obey the original plan. Uh, the, this is why patience is not simply waiting. It is psychological flexibility. It is the ability to remain grounded while circumstances move around you. It is the ability to say, I do not know what happens next, but I do not need to destroy myself trying to find out today. Uh, there is great wisdom in allowing things to reveal themselves. People reveal themselves through patterns. Opportunities reveal themselves through consistency. Copeland relationships reveal themselves through behavior. Your own desires reveal themselves through time. You do not always need to force the clarity. Sometimes you only need to observe. Uh, if someone repeatedly shows you that they do not value your presence, you do not need another 100 conversations to understand the message. Is if an opportunity repeatedly demands that you sacrifice your deepest values, you may not need to keep convincing yourself that it is right. If a path consistently drains you and pulls you away from the person you want to become, perhaps the discomfort is trying to tell you something. Patience gives reality enough time to speak. Resistance keeps interrupting the conversation. You cannot hear what life is showing you when you are constantly trying to make life say something else. This is why stillness can be uncomfortable. When you stop acting, you may finally hear the thoughts you were avoiding. You may discover that you were not actually waiting for something. You were afraid to let it go. You may discover that you were not being patient with a person. You were hoping they would eventually become someone different. You may discover that you were not committed to a dream. You were attached to the identity you created around that dream. These realizations can hurt. But pain does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes pain is the sensation of an illusion breaking. You thought you needed a particular outcome to feel complete. Then you begin discovering that you can remain whole without it. You thought you needed certainty before moving forward. Then you discover that you can move with uncertainty. You thought waiting meant weakness. Then you realize that patience requires more strength than forcing, because patience demands that you tolerate what the ego cannot immediately fix. This is especially difficult in a culture that constantly tells you to move faster. Get it now. Respond immediately. become successful quickly. Never stop. Never slow down. Never wait. But human development does not always happen quickly. Some things require seasons. Some lessons require repetition. Some wounds require time. Some decisions become clear only after you have lived with them long enough. Trying to accelerate every process can become another form of resistance. You cannot force yourself into wisdom. You cannot rush genuine emotional growth. You cannot command your inner life to heal according to a deadline. There are things that must be lived through. There are questions that must remain unanswered for a while. There are periods of life where your greatest task is not achieving something, but becoming capable of carrying what comes next. Patience allows this preparation to happen. It gives you room to grow without constantly demanding visible results. And perhaps this is where you begin to understand that waiting is not necessarily inactivity. A tree appears still, but beneath the surface, something is happening. The roots are extending. The structure is developing. The unseen work is continuing. Your life can be like this. There may be periods when nothing seems to be changing, but perhaps you are learning. Perhaps your standards are changing. Perhaps your identity is changing. Perhaps you are becoming less dependent on external validation. Perhaps you are learning how to stand alone. Perhaps you are becoming emotionally strong enough to receive what you once would have destroyed yourself trying to obtain. Not every season is meant to produce visible results. Some seasons are meant to prepare you. So when you find yourself waiting, ask yourself honestly, am I being patient or am I resisting reality? If you are patient, you can breathe. If you are resisting, you will feel compelled to interfere. If you are patient, you can continue living. If you are resisting, your life becomes suspended around one outcome. If you are patient, you remain open to different possibilities. If you are resisting, you demand that only one possibility be acceptable. And when you finally recognize the difference, you begin to understand that patience is not about waiting forever. It is about knowing when your responsibility ends. Do what is yours to do. Say what is yours to say. Give what is yours to give. Then step back. Let people reveal themselves. Let circumstances develop. Let time expose what urgency hides. Let reality answer questions that force never could. Because sometimes the greatest sign that you are ready to move forward is not that you have finally found the answer, but that you no longer need to force one, no longer need to chase certainty, and no longer need to hold your life hostage while waiting for something outside yourself to become exactly what you hoped it would be. There is a painful truth that many people spend years trying to avoid. Uh, uh, Not everyone who enters your life is meant to remain there. Some people arrive for a season, some for a lesson, some to awaken something within you. And some simply pass through without ever understanding the role they played. Yet, when someone begins to walk away, the instinct of the wounded mind is often to chase. You want an explanation. You want another conversation. You want them to understand what they meant to you. You want them to remember the good moments. You want them to remember the good moments. You want them to reconsider. So you reach out again. You explain yourself again. You apologize again. You make promises. You change yourself. You become more available. You give more than you have. And beneath all of this effort is one silent hope. If I can just make them see my value, perhaps they will stay. But another person's decision to leave is not always a problem that can be solved. Sometimes the harder you chase, the further they move away. This is not because you are worthless. It is because genuine connection cannot be created through pressure. Affection cannot be demanded. Loyalty cannot be negotiated into existence. Uh, a person may care about you and still choose another direction. Uh, someone may uh, someone may appreciate your presence and still decide that their life is moving somewhere else. This is one of the most difficult realities for the ego to accept, because the ego wants explanations that restore its sense of control. Uh, if they uh, if they leave because you made a mistake, perhaps you can fix it. If they leave because you were not good enough, perhaps you can become better. If they leave because you said the wrong thing, perhaps you can find the perfect word. But what if they simply chose differently? Uh, what if there is nothing you can repair? Uh, what if their decision has more to do with their own inner world than with your worth? Uh, this is where you must learn to uh, separate rejection from identity. Someone walking away does not automatically mean that you are unworthy of love. Uh, uh, someone losing interest does not mean that you have become less valuable. Uh, uh, someone choosing another path does not mean that your path has ended. Yet when you are emotionally attached, uh, the mind often turns another person's choice into a judgment about yourself. You begin asking, what is wrong with me? You compare yourself with others. You analyze every conversation. You search for the moment when everything changed. You replay memories as though the past contains a hidden answer that could bring the person back. And without realizing it, you stop living your own life. Your attention becomes centered around someone who is no longer giving you their attention. That is the psychological cost of chasing. Uh, you give your presence to an absence. You allow someone who has physically left your life to occupy your mind every hour of the day. This is why letting go is not merely about losing another person. It is about reclaiming your own psychological energy. You have to recognize when love has become attachment. Uh, love can say, uh, I want you to be happy, even if your happiness does not include me. Attachment says, I need you to choose me so that I can feel secure. Love allows another person to remain free. Attachment tries to control the outcome. Love can grieve. Attachment keeps bargaining, and there is nothing shameful about attachment. It is deeply human. We become attached because we fear loss, we fear loneliness, we fear starting again, we fear that we will never find the same connection. Uh, we fear that the person leaving is taking something irreplaceable with them. But sometimes what you are afraid of losing is not the person. It is the future you imagined with them. Uh, that distinction can change the way you understand heartbreak. Uh, you may not only be uh, grieving what actually happened, uh, you may be grieving the life you thought would happen. Uh, 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 the conversations you imagined, uh, the places you planned to go, uh, the version of yourself you believed you would become beside them, the future you built in your mind. And when that future disappears, uh, you may feel as though your entire identity has been disrupted. But a future that never happened cannot be recovered by uh, chasing the person who no longer wants to participate in it. You must allow yourself to grieve it. You must allow the fantasy to dissolve. You must allow the silence to exist without immediately filling it. This is where many people make another mistake. They rush to replace what they lost, another relationship, another distraction, another obsession, another person to prove that they are still desirable. But if you do not sit with the loss, you may simply carry the same attachment into another situation. Uh, the deeper work is not finding someone else quickly. It is understanding yourself more honestly. Why did you believe you needed that person to validate your worth? Why did their attention become so powerful? Why did their withdrawal feel like the disappearance of your identity. Uh, why did you tolerate things that violated your own boundaries simply to prevent them from leaving? Uh, these questions can lead you toward parts of yourself that you have neglected. Sometimes the person you are chasing is standing at the center of an older wound. Uh, maybe you learned early in life that love had to be earned. Uh, 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 maybe you became accustomed to proving yourself. Maybe you learned to overgive because you were afraid that if you stopped giving, people uh, would disappear. Maybe you confused being needed with being loved. Then someone walks away and the old fear returns. Uh, you do not simply experience their departure. You experience every previous moment when you felt unwanted, unseen, uh, or abandoned. This is why the emotional reaction can feel much larger than the current situation. The present touches something ancient, and instead of uh, recognizing the wound, you chase the person, but the person may not be the real problem. Uh, the wound is asking to be understood. When you begin doing that inner work, something changes. You stop needing to convince people to stay. Uh, you become more comfortable with mutuality. You stop confusing struggle with love. You stop believing that the more you sacrifice, uh, uh, the more valuable the relationship becomes. Uh, you begin understanding that healthy connection contains choice on both sides. You choose them, they choose you, not because either person is trapped, uh, pressured, or manipulated, but because both people genuinely want to participate. That is why someone who chooses to walk away must sometimes be allowed to walk, not because they were unimportant, because their freedom matters, and so does yours. Uh, there is dignity in allowing someone to make a decision without chasing them through it. Uh, you can say what you need to say. You can apologize when you are genuinely wrong. You can make an honest effort. But after that, you must recognize the difference between uh, communication and pursuit, communication. Uh, uh, Communication offers truth. Pursuit demands an outcome. Communication says, this is how I feel. Pursuit says, you must change your decision because I feel this way. Uh, the first respects freedom. The second attempts to control it. And uh, when you release the need to control another person's choice, you discover something important about your own power. You do not need to be chosen by everyone. You need to stop abandoning yourself in the attempt to be chosen. You need to remain connected to your own values, even when someone else disconnects from you. You need to remember who you were before their attention became your emotional currency. You need to return to your own life. That may mean uh, rebuilding your routines, returning to your work, taking care of your body, spending time alone, uh, reconnecting with people who genuinely care about you, creating something, uh, learning something, walking without your phone, sitting quietly with your thoughts. Not because uh, these activities will magically erase the pain, uh, but because they remind you that your existence is larger than one relationship. Uh, the world did not begin when that person entered your life. And it does not end because they leave. You existed before them. You have a future beyond them. And there are parts of yourself that may only become visible after you stop organizing your life around someone else's presence. Someone else's is in sometimes losing someone forces you to meet yourself again. Not the version of yourself that was trying to be loved. Not the version that was constantly adjusting. Not the version that was waiting for a message. Uh, but the quieter version underneath all of that, the person who still has dreams, standards, values, curiosity, and a life that deserves to be lived. So if someone chooses to walk away, let the first response not be panic. Let it be observation. Ask yourself what reality is showing you. Do not immediately chase do not immediately beg. Do not immediately assume that their decision defines your worth. Allow the silence to speak. Allow their absence to reveal what their presence may have been hiding. And if they return, let their actions speak louder than your longing. If they do not return, let that truth become part of your growth. Because sometimes the most powerful act of self-respect is not holding on tighter, but opening your hand and allowing someone who has chosen another direction to continue walking while you finally turn toward your own path, your own life, your own healing, and the person you are becoming when you no longer need to, to chase anyone to prove that you are worthy of staying. There are moments in life when you look around and feel as though everyone else is moving forward while you remain standing in the same place. Someone gets the opportunity you wanted. Someone reaches a goal you have been pursuing for years. Someone finds love, builds a career, creates a family, or discovers a direction that seems so obvious to them, while you are still questioning what your own life is becoming. The mind immediately begins comparing. Why am I behind? Why hasn't it happened for me? What am I doing wrong? Why does everyone else seem to know where they are going? These questions can create a deep sense of urgency. You begin believing that life is operating according to a schedule and that you have somehow missed yours. But transformation does not happen according to the clock of comparison. There is no universal timetable for becoming who you are meant to become. The human psyche develops through experience, confrontation, loss, discovery, failure, reflection, and periods of uncertainty that cannot always be explained while you are inside them. It is what looks like stagnation from the outside may actually be preparation taking place beneath the surface. You may believe that nothing is happening because there is no visible result. But something may be changing within you. Your standards may be changing. Uh, uh, your understanding of yourself may be changing. Uh, your relationship with fear may be changing. Uh, your ability to tolerate uncertainty may be becoming stronger. Your old identity may be slowly losing its grip. And before a person can step into a different life, they often have to become psychologically different from the person who uh, who created the old one. This is why transformation can feel confusing. Uh, you may no longer fit comfortably inside your old identity, but you may not yet recognize the new one. Uh, you have uh, outgrown certain relationships, but you have not yet found new connections. Uh, you no longer believe the things you once believed, uh, but you have not yet developed a complete philosophy for what comes next. You know what you do not want, uh, but you are still discovering what you genuinely want. This middle ground can feel like failure, but it may simply be transition. There is a tendency to demand immediate clarity from ourselves. We want to know exactly who we are, what our purpose is, where we are going, and how long it will take to get there. When those answers do not appear quickly, we assume that something has gone wrong. But some answers cannot be discovered through thinking alone. Uh, they emerge through living. Uh, you can think about uh, what kind of person you want to become, uh, uh, but eventually life will place you situation in situations that reveal whether you are actually becoming that person. You may say that you value peace until you are forced to choose between peace and the approval of others. You may say that you value yourself until someone gives you the opportunity to remain in a relationship that requires you to abandon your boundaries. You may say that you trust yourself until the path ahead becomes uncertain. Transformation, uh, transformation happens in these moments, not when everything is comfortable, but when the old version of you is tempted to return, and you choose differently. This is why you should not underestimate slow progress. Uh, a person can spend months appearing unchanged while internally becoming stronger. They may be learning to say no. They may be learning not to chase. Uh, they may be learning to sit with silence. They may be learning to stop explaining themselves to people who have already decided how they will perceive them. They may be learning that being alone is not the same as uh, being abandoned. Uh, they may be learning that uncertainty does not mean danger. These changes are difficult to measure. There is no uh, obvious trophy for them. Uh, no one may congratulate you. Uh, no one may even notice. But they can completely alter the direction of your life. The problem is that modern life encourages visible achievement. We are taught to measure progress through external signs. Money, status, relationships, possessions, titles, followers, accomplishments. But psychological growth uh, often happens where no one can see it. You may become more, more peaceful without becoming more uh, successful by society's standards. You may become more self-aware without uh, uh, receiving any external recognition. Uh, you may become emotionally mature while your circumstances remain almost identical. And if you only measure progress by what has changed around you, you may fail to uh, you may fail to recognize what has changed within you. This is why trusting your timing matters. It does not mean sitting passively and waiting for life to deliver everything you desire. It means refusing to turn delay into self-hatred. Uh, uh, there is a difference between saying, I will do nothing because everything will work itself out, and saying, I will continue doing my part without destroying myself, because the result has not arrived yet. The first is avoidance. The second is trust. Trust does not eliminate effort. Uh, it changes the emotional quality of effort. You work because the work matters.